is telling to Klal Yisrael that as much as he supplicated to go into Eretz Yisrael, Hashem did not allow him, and he told him to remain silent. Pasuk Chavav. V'yisaber Hashem bi lemanchem. Hashem became enraged with me, or angered with me, on your behalf, because of you. V'lo shoma Eloi. And he did not listen to me. V'yom Hashem Eloi ravloch. Hashem said to me, you have much. Al tosef daber Eloi od badavar zeh. I don't want you to continue speaking about this, regarding this issue. He's sharing this with Klal Yisrael. I don't want you to continue praying. You have much. You should not continue praying. So over here, the simple understanding is, Hashem became angered with me because of you. What does that mean? So Rashi says, Nispali chema l'madchem b'shchilchem atem geramtem li. You caused me to be unworthy. They became anger over the waters of the Mem Riva, the waters when they began quarreling. And it was bad for Moshe because of them. So the two ways you could understand this. They were the cause why he did not go in, because they angered him. Another understanding, as we explained, Hashem became angry with him, lemanchem, because of you, meaning, not you're the cause of me becoming angry. Hashem created this scenario that I should be presented with this challenge and I should become angry and fail because of you, because it's your best interest that I should not go in. This is lemanchem. Lemanchem means you're the cause of my problem. You caused me to fail, and therefore I'm not going in. Or no. Lemanchem means Hashem presented me with this challenge because it's in your best interest I should not go in, and therefore that's the reason why I was presented with a challenge that I should fail. That's lemanchem. Because it's in your best interest that I should not go in. Explain this in a moment. This we discussed. The various approaches. Either because if Moshe would have gone in, the Beis Mikdash couldn't be destroyed. Or, as we said, because of the Baal Peor, because the only one who could silence the prosecution of Baal Peor is only Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu's grave has to be opposite the location which they fail with Baal Peor, and because every year, as I'll show you in a moment, the Chazal, that every year at the time that they fail with Baal Peor, this negative power comes to prosecute Klal Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu comes out of the grave. When it sees Moshe's grave, immediately it's quelled. It goes right back into the grave, as we'll explain in a moment. Ravloch, shlo yomra Rav kosher, v'atalmid kamasarvon. So the first interpretation is not the simple interpretation. Ravloch means Rav. Rav is referring to the master. Because you have a master, and if you continue praying and I don't respond, it appears that the master is heartless, is difficult, and the Talmud and the student persists. I mean, it's a challenge of wit over here. God versus Moshe, Moshe versus God. Dover acher ravloch harbe mashot mizeh shomer loch. Rav tov hatzofen loch. I mean, there's much put away for you. You have much reward. Okay. You turn to Zosa Brocha, Lamed Dalid Vov. Turn Lamed Dalid Vov in Zosa Brocha. Vayikbar Osa Bagai. There it's Moav. He's buried in the guy in the valley, in the land of Moab, Mul Beis Por, opposite the Beis Por, the location of where they had sinned with the Baal Por. Lo Yod Ish es Kvoros Ad Yom Hazeh. If you take a look in Rashi, Mul Beis Por, Rashi over there, Lamed Daled Vov, Kivro Hoya Molchen Sho Mishesh Me Bereshis. It says one of the 10 things that was created, Bein HaShmoshes, Erev Shabbos, was the grave location, the burial location of Moshe Rabbeinu. Kivro Shoyamuchan Shom Mishesh Mei Bereshis. L'chaper al Maseh Peor, to atone for the Maseh Peor. V'ze'echad min advarim shnivru be'erev Shabbos Bein HaShmoshes. Quotes Pirkei Avos. The 10 things that were created Bein HaShmoshes at the twilight period. Bein HaShmoshes, as Shabbos was about to enter, one was the burial location of Moshe. If you take a look at the Mishnah Pirkei Avos, there was the ram that was used for the Akedah, the Pi Chamor, the donkey being able to speak, who had spoken to Bilam, the location in which Korach and his community was swallowed up by the earth, the Pioretz. If you take a look, every one of those things that were created, Bein HaShmoshes, were basic and vital and necessary for the existence of Klal Yisrael, and to establish the position of Torah and truth in the world. The Pioretz, the Pi Chamor, the Kivro Shel Moshe. What's the grave of Moshe Rabbeinu? So over here, he says, L'chaper al Maseh Peor, to atone for the Maseh Peor. I mean, seemingly we were atoned for it. What do you mean to atone? We were atoned. It was created to atone. And Pinchas was the zealot who killed Zimri. And that there would have been a plague which would have consumed the Jewish people. Because of his act of zealotry, Hashem says, Lo chilisis b'nei Yisrael b'kinu was kinosi. I did not annihilate the Jewish people, consume them, because he avenged my vengeance. So what does it mean that his grave, which was created, Bein HaShmoshes, that atones for Klal Yisrael. So if you take a look in the Sifsei Chachomim over here, he quotes Tosas and Sota. It's the Chaf with the asterisk. A few lines into the Sifsei Chachomim.
Rabbi, the Sifsei Chachomim in Zos HaBracha?
In Zos HaBracha. Zel Loshen Tosas. It's quoted Tosas and Sota. Medrash Agoda. Tosas and Sota quotes a Medrash. At the exact moment every year when the Jewish people sinned with the daughters of Moab, the Beis Por, this location which they sinned so seriously, ascends above to prosecute and to mention the sin of the Baal Por. Every year at that moment, and as this power rises to prosecute and mention the sin of Baal Por, when it sees the grave of Moshe Rabbeinu, Chosev Shokea, it goes and it sinks back into the ground. Moshe Rabbeinu Shoko Bekarka Ad Chotmo, because at the time that Baal Por, after that sin, Moshe Rabbeinu sank it into the ground, whatever this means Kabbalistically, until its nose. And every year when it ascends, Chosev Inishka, L'mokum Sheshoko Moshe Rabbeinu, to the location which Moshe Rabbeinu originally had buried it. So the Kivro Shel Moshe was created Bein HaShmoshes because that location had to be created with a capacity that Moshe's remains should be there to bring about that objective to counter the prosecution of Baal Por, which ultimately would have destroyed us. As we see then, if not for Pinchas' zealotry, we would be consumed with Hashem's wrath. So Moshe is saying, Hashem became angered with me, lemantchem. I mean, it was in your interest, because if he wouldn't have, I would have gone into Eretz Yisrael. What would be when this prosecution would happen every year? What would counter it? So I had to be buried on the TransJordan side, opposite the location, to whenever this moment happens, this immediately quells it and silences that prosecution. This is Lamantchem. So this, what Tosas brings, is a chazal. The Or Chaim HaKodesh, that's his understanding, that if Moshe would have built the Beis HaMikdash, couldn't be destroyed, and therefore couldn't be taken as collateral. But the Sifsei Chacham is quoting a Chazal, Tosis, which quotes a Medrash, it's because the grave location, the gravesite had to be there, where Moshe's remained there to counter the prosecution against Klal Yisrael. So it's very interesting. As we have the Akedah, which every year we mention on Rosh Hashanah, Akedah Yitzchok, and when we blow the shofar, that schus silences the ultimate prosecution of Yom Adin, and if not to that, we would not be able to survive. And that's the reason why Satan tried in the worst way to stop Avram Avinu from going to the Akedah. It came as a raging river, and he did all kinds of things because he understood that if he would succeed, at the end of the day, he lost the game. Because of that schus of the Akedah, whenever he will prosecute, that schus will silence him. Similarly here, Bilam understood exactly what the jugular vein of the Jewish people was. Elokeim shel sonah zima. The God of the Jews will not tolerate licentiousness. The Bnos Moav go and do that to the Jews, it's over for the Jews. And he almost succeeded. It's only because of the zealotry of Pinchas did we survive, but even that's not sufficient. You have to have Kivro Shel Moshe, which was created at the entry point of Shabbos, which is the location which Moshe's remains are there, which has to counter the prosecution, because otherwise we couldn't survive that level of prosecution. So Moshe is saying, Hashem created that challenge for me, so I should fail. Of course, he had Bechir, he had choice, but Hashem presented that, because if Hashem would have wanted him to go in, he didn't have to present him with that challenge. And he would have gone in. But he wanted him to fail, and he knew he would fail, although he didn't have to fail. Therefore, and that's what Moshe is saying, because of you, Hashem became enraged with me, but he only created that scenario because it's in your best interest that I should not go in. That's the understanding.